Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here in the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas. We're on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith. We're on streaming, 987radio.com. We're on all of our social media pages, and we are glad to be here, and we're ready to go. I was just getting some pictures sent to me, and trying to get those opened up because that's going to be part of our show today. So I was just getting those sent. Leslie was sending them to me as we were speaking, so I was trying to find them right quick. Hope you guys are doing good. I've had a good day, and we're going to talk about three or four things today. We're going to talk about vitamin D, which we haven't talked about in a while, but there's a new study out that Dr. Murphy put out, and that I think you guys will be very interested in. We're going to talk about cupping, which is something that's new to me. And then we're going to get into a little bit of one of the shows, and I'm actually going to lead with it tonight. I spent some time last night with watching the Blue Zones again. We mentioned it yesterday on the show, the Blue Zones, live to 100, and then the Blue Zones. And I don't remember. Let me just look it up right quick because we got the guy's name. I want to give him credit. This is Dan Buettner is his name. Yeah. And you can go to danbuettner.com, DanBuettner. Dan Buettner is the guy's name. And he's basically has dedicated his whole life to try to figure out how to help people live healthier, at least the last 30 years of his life. And he's the one that did these Blue Zones. If you haven't watched the show, it's a really good show. It's very, very, very educational when it comes to health. It's very, it's evidence-based. You know how much I hate that term, but this is true evidence-based. These people are living to 100-something years old. There's one guy that he's on horseback and herding up his cattle or his goats or whatever, and he's 90-something years old. There's 90-something year old people that are exercising in the park, and there's people that are all over the world that are doing stuff, and he'll just bring it to you straight up. And I really think it's good. I was watching it last night. I was thinking, maybe we're missing a little bit what we're doing with the show. Maybe we're missing a little bit about it, maybe we could create a little bit better focus. This is Dan right here, and want to live to 100. Yeah, I mean, the secrets of the Blue Zones may reveal how. Best-selling author and founder of Blue Zones, Dan Buettner's new documentary series explores the science and lifestyle behind longevity. Most people hope they'll live a long, healthy, and happy life, but few are able to travel the world in an attempt to reverse engineer the formula for longevity. That's exactly what Dan Buettner did. Beginning in early aughts, Buettner collaborated with National Geographic, scouring the globe in pursuit of places where people live much longer than average, and thus the concept of Blue Zones came to be. Follow Buettner's best-selling book, Blue Zones 9, Lessons of Living Longer from the People Who Lived the Longest. The new docuseries, Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones, travels around the world to investigate the diet and lifestyles of those living the longest lives. And they're very simple. One of the things he said last night on the show was the one I was watching, and I don't even remember which. There's like 4 or 5 part series to the whole thing, and I was the one I was watching last night was episode 4. And let me see how many episodes. Yeah, and that's it. So there's 4 episodes on there, and he starts with where the journey began. And one of the things that he said yesterday on the episode 4 was that he started in Okinawa, Japan, and I've mentioned that lots of times because as long as I've been a chiropractor and I've been studying this health stuff, Okinawa's been the longest living people on Earth. And what Dan said last night in episode 4 was that has shrunk down to a very, very small area of Okinawa, and mainly because the implementation of the Western diet. And um, he was in Nicoya, Costa Rica, and he was showing this grandpa that was in his 90s. He was the guy that was horseback and still working cattle in his 90s, and Dan he was showing the grandpa and talking about the things that the grandpa ate, and then he was showing the grandson like this. It might have been this old man's great grandson. Probably was. He was in his 90s, and he was showing this great grandson, and he said he was like he asked the mom of the little child. He's probably 3 or 4 years old. He asked the mom of the child. Could have been his great grandson. I don't know, but and he said to the mom, uh, "Does he eat the same things that the grandpa did?" And she was like, "No, he won't eat that stuff. He likes those cookies." And the little kid was asking grandpa if he wanted a cookie. And he had this little bag. And then Buettner went downtown and he showed pictures of like a Subway and a Pizza Hut and another place. And he was talking about how the culture had changed and the moving in of the Western diet had changed. And it was really causing lots of problems. I mean, it was like it had shrunk the population. It was like this guy has lived 90 something years. He's a thin man. He's an active man. He's herding his cattle on his horse. He's working. He's got a plan for life. Something they called it, something Vita, Costa Vita, something Vita that was like have a plan, have a mission, have a vision. Talked about being very social with the whole thing, and then they fast forwarded to the child, and it was just like, look what's happened. And that's what I was trying to say last night on the show. It was like we are in the sickest society in the history of mankind right here in America, and as that spreads across the globe to other places, it makes them sick too. It decreases lifespan. It brings those blue zones down to smaller areas. And Dan was talking last night on episode 4 about trying to create some blue zones. So he went to a place, I don't remember, I didn't take notes while I was watching it. I was just watching it, but he went to a place in, I think it was in Minnesota, actually. I think it was in southern Minnesota. And he found this little town that's a little over 20,000 people in the town. And he went there to see if he could increase their lifespan. And he did by like 2 years. Like they actually got involved. The city leaders said, hey, this is something that we need. And the rich people in town, they said, hey, this is something that we need. And they're like, we should do this and we should create a blue zone. And then at the very end of the show, he was in Singapore. And he was trying to see if they could create a blue zone in Singapore. And they're actually doing a lot of things in Singapore to try to see if they can make people's lives healthier. And so it just got me thinking last night. It got me thinking about, because one of the things that they ate in this little town in Costa Rica, in Nicoya, Nicoya, one of the things that was very common was the little triad of food, and you'd be really surprised. Number 1 was corn on the cob, straight corn on the cob, right? High omega-6, but the way they prepared it was interesting. Corn, black beans, and squash, and it was kind of an orange squash. It looked a little bit more like a cantaloupe, like we would have in today's world. It looked a little bit more like a cantaloupe, but it was orange squash, and that's been eaten for I don't know what he said, centuries, multiple centuries, thousands of years, whatever. In this area is a cultural thing, and he was talking about the necessity. we are very big on meat. And I'm not an anti-meat guy whatsoever, but he's like, we're very big on meat, and we because we think we need the protein from the meat in order to build the muscles. And then he showed this guy chopping wood. He showed this 90-something-year-old guy that just got off his horse chopping wood with an axe. And he was like, we think we have to eat all these animals. Now, I will say this, the guy was herding cattle. So Dan might have been a little biased on his reporting right there, because he was like, what was he herding cattle for? I just thought of that right now. I was like, but but the guy was very fit and he was very strong, and he said it doesn't matter, and this is true, and I really do believe this. It doesn't true. Proteins are made from amino acids, and where you get those amino acids doesn't make any difference. You can get those amino acids from meat, or you can get those amino acids from your food. And he broke down this corn. I mean, that like they actually take this corn. Now, this is kind of a primitive type of. This is like original stuff, right? This is not processed food whatsoever. This is like original stuff, and they're grinding that corn. And they're cooking it. They're cooking that corn in some sort of um, man, I don't even know what it was. There was some way that they were cooking that corn that was releasing like the niacin from the corn, and they were grinding it up, and it was legitimately an original grain. It was ancient grains is what they call them today, right? Um, um, and that's an original. Sorry, I was typing something. I got lost my thought right there. But that's one of those things that is that's an authentic, that's an organic, that's a very natural way of eating a food. But black beans, and he said one of the things that was in all of the cultures that lived to be an older age, beans were consistent across the board with all of them. They're probably very cheap. They're probably very easy to grow, and they have lots of nutrients. And then they were adding this squash, and they were cooking it. It looked like they were boiling it or something, and then they were adding that together. But what they were bringing to us, they were bringing to themselves, not to us, but they were bringing to themselves the amino acids that it took to build the muscles. And I heard this a long time ago. When I was studying forks over knives. That's what I was looking up. But let me see. And this guy here named Rip Esselstyn, and maybe they'll have a picture of him. I'll try to find it, but he's an Austin firefighter. And Rip Forks Over Knives is a book by a medical doctor, Dr. Esselstyn, and he got together with T. Colin Campbell, and they created this thing. And then they were just talking about like they're the ones that don't eat anything with a mother or a face, right? So it's all about whole grains and vegetables and that sort of thing. And they were trying to say, hey, look, you can build muscle, and you can get. Let me see if I can find some pictures of him, because this guy's a straight vegetarian guy. See if I can find a picture of him, but the point of it is like, yeah. So there's a picture of him. I mean, you just think, well, I have to eat meat. I'm not personally anti-meat, but let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. No, I can't get this. I can't get that to open up, but that's a picture of him anyway. And he's a fit dude. He's a triathlete, and he's a vegetarian. And so the point that I'm trying to make is this. There's a way to be healthy and old. And eating well, moving well, thinking well, being social, all those things that we are talking about every single night when we put on this show, those things are legitimately real things around the world. If you look at all those people, and that's what I was trying to say earlier too, is that there's so many gurus. I promise you, those people in Nicoya, Costa Rica, they don't have Instagram or YouTube or any of that stuff. They're not red lighting themselves. They're not like trying to figure out what kind of shake they're supposed to have and what's the best protein powder and all that sort of thing. They're not doing any of that stuff. And we are the ones that make it a little bit hard. So I don't think we have to make it that hard. I think we can lean into it a little bit and say, hey, look, people have been living on the planet a long time. This morning I looked up my grandparents. I wanted to see how old my grandpas were. And my my grandpa on my dad's side was, I think I determined that he was just a few days older or a few months older than 86. He was 86 years old. And my granddad on my mom's side, I think I remember he was 84 years old. So both of those guys were in their mid 80s. And it's really interesting because of the 4 sons that my grandpa had, 3 of them have already passed away, and 3 of them have passed away at an earlier age than 86. My dad and my Uncle Jerry were both 80, and then my Uncle John died earlier. I think he was 73, whatever his issue was. It kind of makes you wonder, like, why is that? Because you think, well, if we're progressing forward, why would we not be living longer than our parents? What is the deal with that? Don't you think that if we're healthier now than we were then, why are we not reaching the same level that our parents did? And I can tell you what, my grandpa was a hard man. He was a hard-bodied man. He was a hard-working man. And he had his downfalls just like everybody else does, but he was a hard-bodied man for a very long time, working hard out on the ranch. My uncle bought 360-something acres or something in East Texas, and my grandpa ran that place. And he was out there bush hogging and moving hay and working cattle and doing all that sort of thing and delivering calves and he didn't eat he didn't eat very good. He ate. I'll tell you what he didn't eat. He didn't eat processed food very much. I mean, very much of it. He didn't eat at restaurants. I can tell you that because they lived way out in the country, and there wasn't any. Talco had like 605 people my whole life, and so there wasn't a lot going on. I know at certain times of his life he did, but on the majority of his life he didn't. But he worked for a long time. Then when he retired and he got too old, they moved him into town, and that's when he had his downfall. And that's what the guys on the show last night kept saying. They kept saying, hey, we need to keep moving. Like it's very important. Like we got to keep moving. That if you want to live, you got to keep your feet moving. You got to get up. He's like, one of the guys, I think it was maybe one of the guys in Singapore. He was in his 90s. He was actually a medical doctor, I think, if I remember right. He was 93 years old, I think, and he was a medical doctor, and he was still seeing patients. Maybe he was 92, but he was out playing tennis, and he was like, you have to move. They grow their own gardens. That's one of the things that they do. The biggest thing that was consistent with all the people, there was probably 4 or 5 things that kind of made this big puzzle, and then they kind of put all the pieces together that were consistent for all of them. But the biggest thing was to have good, healthy relationships. Keep the family involved. Keep your grandparents involved in your family with your kids. Like have good quality friends. Have good relationships with each other. Make sure that you're social. And we say that a lot on this show. The number one thing you can do for your brain is to be social. I hope everybody understands that. That's that's the best thing you can do. If don't worry about what food you're going to eat first. Don't worry about what kind of exercise you're going to do first. Number one thing is be social. Then watch those. Then start working on those things um, at the same time. So I really highly recommend the Blue Zones. I highly recommend you go through. If you have time, just watch them. Just watch them, and then just see if you can pick up a few things from what Dan's teaching on that. And because it starts early. It doesn't matter how old you are. It starts early, and it moves you all the way through life. And then it's like there's some really, really good lessons in that 4-part series that I think we can take from that. So that's what I wanted to say about that. That's probably more than I wanted to say about that. But let's move along. Okay, I had a great experience this weekend. I had a humbling learning experience, and if you don't think you can learn at 54, you're wrong. You can learn for the rest of your life, and I plan on doing that. I plan on learning for the rest of my life, and I'll tell you what it was about. It was about cupping. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of cupping. If you know what it is, if you've ever heard of it, a lot of you have. So I learned something a while back that people tend to say negative things about things they don't understand. I think that's true. Immature people. And I have to admit that when it comes to cupping, I've been one of those immature people, and I've probably been a little negative. I've even said some things negative. My son even said, "I thought you said cupping was hogwash." And I'm like, well, I probably did. I probably said, because I didn't understand it. And I still don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily agree with the application all the way through, okay? I don't think you have to leave hickeys on yourself all over yourself in order to have effective cupping. But when we bought the Shockwave machine had an option. I could upgrade to the next level of radial pressure wave machine from stores and get a cupping device that came with it. And I was trying to decide if I even wanted to do that. Like, do I want to upgrade the cupping, the software, the radial pressure wave machine in order to get cupping? And I'm like, well, I don't even do cupping. And the salesman was trying to talk me out of it. He's like, Jason, you don't need to spend $5,000 to get a cupping system. You can get one on Amazon for nothing. So I asked around. I asked my friends. I asked Joe and Ruidoso. I asked MJ, Katie, and Roswell. I asked Condi in South Florida. And I talked to some of my patients about it. I talked to some of my patients who are massage therapists about it. And all of them said yes. They were all doing cupping. There's so many things that are out there that it's like, good gosh, it's like hard to know. It's hard to get up to speed. And especially when you're a little slow on the uptake, it's hard to get up to speed. So my negative aspect about cupping was coming from my ignorance. And I think I'm not alone. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact I'm not alone on that. There's a lot of people out there who are ignorant about things, and then they don't really have any value for them, right? So when all my guys said yes, MJ said, Doc, you can go to Rock Tape, where we do our tape. You could go to Rock Tape and you can. This is a picture of the tape that is there, and you can go to Rock Tape and they have seminars that they teach. And I knew it, and you know what? They were too expensive. They were like, it was like I'd gone to Rock Tape in the past, and I was like, dude, I ain't paying $270 to watch a video for 6 hours. Like, no. And it's so funny. It's so funny how things work, right? Because when you don't have any value for anything, you won't spend any money on it. And then when you change your perspective, as we were talking about on taking health to church for the last 2 nights, when you change your perspective, then you change your value system and you change your purpose. And then all of a sudden it's like, of course I'm going to spend $270 a 6-hour seminar to get certified in cupping and a couple $100 worth of cups. And so that's what I've done in the last week to try to get caught up to the whole thing. And you know what? It's one of those things. If you knock, the door will answer, right? If you seek, you shall find, right? Those things are solid truths, absolute solid truths. And sometimes there are things I have discovered, there are things out there that you search for by accident, like that you discover, you don't search for, that you discover by accident, just because you move your feet forward and you try to make things better. Like you just try to get smarter and you don't know why, just because all your friends are doing it and you're just like, dude, why are you the only one that doesn't know anything about cupping? And so that's what I did this weekend. I ordered all the cups last week and I got some of them. And then I took the seminar this weekend and got certified in cupping. And in the seminar, I saw one slide that made the whole thing worth it. And it was like an aha moment. And when we get back from the break, I'll tell you what that is. So you guys stick around with us. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. And we will be right back right after these messages. And you can't leave now. You got to stick around with us because you got to find out what that aha moment was. We'll be right back. Yeah, I didn't grab my tape, but that's the tape. Let me see if I can find if you guys have never seen the rock tape. Now, let me look, just while we're on the break, give me just a second, because those pictures that Leslie was sending me just now I was needing to, I had her send me my notes. There it was right there. I had her send me my notes because I wanted to, and I might have said it on the show. I'm sure I did say it on the show at some point, that I wasn't exactly sure how the tape worked. Like I had it explained to me that it created a lift and opened up some fluid, one of those things. But I should have known better. And it was so humbling this weekend to take that course and just learn that, when you do a show 5 nights a week, you say a lot of things. And sometimes you learn that some of the things you said were stupid. And I know that you guys already know that. But sometimes for myself, I have to learn that. So I probably have said negative things about the cupping, and I probably have said some things about the tape that were just ignorant, really, of any. I mean, just to be honest and transparent, but the decompression of the cup creates 7 to 10 millimeters of space. And the tape is 1 to 3 millimeters of space. Yeah, that right there. That's an important thing for me to understand, because that makes sense. Like there's actually things out there that you're doing that you don't know that you're doing that actually makes sense. Go figure, right? Hang on, let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're talking about cupping right now. And so if you missed the first half of the show, we talked about blue zones, and I highly recommend that you watch that show, 4-part series on Netflix. It's great. But what we were talking about is cupping, and we talked about this aha moment that I had. And so let me slow down for just a second so I say this properly. I went to chiropractic school with the understanding, because of my brother-in-law, because I was working in his office before I went to chiropractic school. I went to the chiropractic school with the understanding of the subluxation. And I learned in chiropractic school the 24 bones of the spine, plus the sacrum, plus the occiput, and the 206 bones of the body. I learned the bones, and I understood the idea of misalignment, uh, subluxation issue with the spine. Okay, and I practiced mostly. For 10 years. 2005, I got my license. 2015, I went to um, Utah and I learned AMIT. And for that first 10 years, there was a very strong influence on my practice based on structure and adjusting. And it was looking at those cervical curves, it was adjusting the spine, it was adjusting the extremities to try to remove the subluxation based on the spine and the extremities. Then in 2015, I went and learned 605 muscles. And 605 muscles, it just expanded my understanding of subluxation. It expanded my understanding of being able to say, "Oh, I get it now." Um, like that's interesting. There's 605 muscles plus those 206 bones that now can create interference in your nervous system. And for the last 10 years, it's really interesting that it's been 10 years cycles now. For the last 10 years, I've added that muscle activation technique, which is called AMIT, Advanced Muscle Integration Technique. I've added that technique to my approach as to what's going on in the body, right? So I expanded the ability to address the subluxation by looking at that. And I've learned about fascia, and we've talked about fascia on this show, and I've showed you the Anatomy Trains book, and I know that the fascia is a sensory system, but it didn't really click. It didn't really didn't really get deeper into it, and it's such an amazing. It's so inspiring to me, to tell you the honest truth. It's so inspiring to me to move into the shockwave, and because of the process of doing my due diligence to try to get the best shockwave machine, I learned something in that process. And I learned something about cupping. Or at least I got it introduced to me in the process. And then talking to my circle of friends who are very influential in the fact that I know every single day they're going to work to try to be the best. That's the cool thing about those three offices, but four guys right there. Joe, MJ, and Kati, Dr. Fraley at Alpha and Omega Chiropractic in Ruidoso, one of the greatest chiropractors on the planet, as far as I can tell. He's one of the best healers on the planet. He's in Ruidoso, New Mexico. My two friends in Roswell, MJ and Kati Lewis at Rock Chiropractic, and they have CrossFit. They're just great people. And then John Condi, my friend at the Condi Center in South Florida, Delray Beach, Florida. I know every single day when those guys get up, they're going to work to try to be the best they could be at chiropractic. They're trying to be the best healers, they're trying to be the best doctors, and they're trying to give their people the absolute best care that they can. And I'm so inspired by the healthy competition that we have with each other, like the driving force that we have on each other. And I would like to think, very humbly, I would like to think that I have a driving force on them as well. And I think I do. And so it's just super cool, right? But here's the aha moment that I learned, because what I got to see in this what I got to see is right here. And I got to see it from a way that you understand it. And sometimes that's part of what I know about chiropractic, and it's part of what I know about this show, is that you just sometimes have to hear things over and over and over and over again. It took me 12 years from my first adjustment before I finally got an aha moment of what the subluxation was. And then it took me 10 years of practice before I got the aha moment that, wait, the subluxation may be caused from the muscle or in the muscle. That might be causing the interference in the nervous system. That might be shutting down your nervous system. And then this weekend, I got to see this picture. And what it is right here, it's a picture of skin. And then what you've got is this superficial adipose tissue that's underneath it. And then what you have is this superficial layer of fascia. And in between that, there are these fluid-filled sacs. And it's called your interstitium. And they came out a few years ago and said, hey, we found a new organ called the interstitium, and it ought to be paid attention to. Because you can go below that, you get a deep adipose tissue, you get a deep layer of fat. And this all comes from the ResearchGate. ResearchGate is where I'm looking at this picture. Hesham El-Sharqui. But this, you got the skin, you got this layer of adipose tissue that's got fluid-filled sacs in it. You got this superficial fascia, which is very, very thin. Then you have the adipose tissue. Then you have a multi-structural deep fascia. Then you've got loose connective tissue. Then you've got the muscle, right? So before we ever get to the muscle, we've got these multiple layers of fascia that are on the outer layer. And what we've been doing with rock tape is we've been raising with rock tape, and I wish I would have grabbed some tape before I came in here, but rock tape or Kinesio tape, it's the same stuff, it's just a brand, right? What we've been doing is we've been applying it, you apply it with a stretch. I think I showed you last week when I had remember my thumb that was sprained, I couldn't even hardly move my wrist and my thumb was in pain, and we did a laser on my thumb and then I taped it with the rock tape. Okay, what I was doing in the rock tape is I was decompressing that layer of interstitium and superficial fascia and deep fascia above the muscle, which has nerve supply. That was the aha moment. That was like, dude, look what you just did. Just by accident, you just stumbled upon an entire new way of looking at subluxation. I know it's not as exciting to y'all as it is to me, but we're still working on it, right? We're trying to get it to be that way. Because now I've got, not only do I have 206 bones, and not only do I have 605 muscles, but now on top of that, I've got your entire covering. I've got your flesh all the way from top to bottom, from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. I've got your entire covering. That now I get it. I kind of got it before, but now I really get it. That's a superficial decompression. Because what would we do? What would we do with a bulging disc? We would decompress it, right? So we know that. We want to do decompression on a bulging disc. We've got a decompression table back there in the back. That's what cervical tractioning is. Long axis tractioning is decompression. Some of the adjustments we do are decompressive adjustments, right? Well, this little dude right here is a cup. And it's just a piece of silicone. And there's 3 ways that you can apply it. But one of the ways is you just put it on your hand and then you just press down and it will create suction on your hand. Now, if I want to try to pull that off, like that's stuck on there pretty good. And what I now can do, what's happening underneath that cup, now on the lip of the cup, it's creating a little bit of compression, but underneath in the middle, on the hollow part of the cup right here, that you can see, is creating a decompressive force on my skin. And now what I could do with that is I can actually manipulate that. I can adjust that in different angles and vectors, I can kind of pull in one direction or the other, and I can kind of work on releasing that compression that's going on underneath there. And that's what cupping is. If you're wondering what cupping is, that's what cupping is. Now, what I don't agree with at this point, and it may be because of ignorance, but it may be because of clinical understanding, is this is about 3 to 90 seconds max is what we're going to do that for. Because all we're trying to do is decompress, right? So I have seen people like Michael Phelps, when he was in the Olympics, I've seen him show up with like these big rings. You can tell when someone's been cupped because they have these, hickey's not a good word, but that's basically what it is. I don't even know if you could use that word on the, but where you get a red spot underneath the cup, right? And so wherever you decide that you're going to have that cup, and I need to get that a little bit different. One of the last way that you can apply the cup, and these are really cool, is that you can actually fold them over like that, and then you can let them come down, and now that creates quite the suction that is right there. So I used them multiple times today, but if you leave that on there for a long period of time, what you're going to actually do is you're going to attract some bilirubin. And the Reuben part of bilirubin makes it red. There's biliverdin that makes it green. You ever got a bruise and the bruise is green? I saw one today on a knee from a lady that fell off her bike. And it was kind of a green bruise. The reason for that is that what happens is you actually get heme from hemoglobin. You get heme released into the tissue, and you got to control that heme, because if you have too much heme, you'll end up with scar tissue or fibrosis, or like you'll have some sort of damage to the skin. It will get all messed up. So you really got to make sure that you control the amount of heme that when it gets released due to whatever injury. And one of the things that sucks up that heme is that biliverdin, I believe is how it was called, and the bilirubin. And there's one other substance that goes along with it that is actually doing the soaking up of that, and bringing those to the area is just a byproduct of what happens whenever you do cupping. So if you've seen that in the past, you've seen that cupping on someone. You may not have seen it, but if you have seen it, that's what's going on. But you're creating a lift, and you're opening up that interstitium, those fluid-filled areas that now allow for, they end up in the lymph system, but they're not necessarily part of the lymph system. They dump into the lymph system, but you're letting some flow happen underneath the skin. You're getting rid of this congestion that's underneath that area. Another thing you can also do is the nerves that are involved in that area. Sometimes those nerves get stuck. And I learned that 2 years ago at my continuing education seminar that we had here in Lubbock. Was talking about the if you had some tissue, if you had some fascia, and maybe even some muscle that's underneath it, and you had a nerve that was running down through the middle of that, that's I think we talked about that one time. Is like flossing. If you were going to floss something, you were going to look at it, and then you're going to bring this back. You can floss that nerve that's going down your arm. If you look at your wrist, and then you act like you hit yourself, and look and see who hit you, and then hit yourself and look and see who hit you. That what's actually happening is you're grabbing on both ends of that nerve, and it's like moving a piece of yarn through a straw, where the straw is held in place and you're trying to move the yarn through the straw. So you'd pull on both ends. Well, sometimes what happens is there's a leak of the fluid from the nerve. And when the nerve leaks a little bit, it like creates a spot weld. And it creates a spot weld in the fascia, and it creates a hook. And it kind of like welds the nerve in there. So instead of that nerve moving freely, now that nerve all of a sudden is getting hung up. If you've ever gotten hung up fishing, it's kind of like, yep, that's what that is. That nerve's kind of getting hung up in there. So there's some of the things we can do is we can floss that nerve, but then we can add these little dudes to it and we can work over the top of it. And then another one is this bigger one, and it's called a glide. So it's a little hard to tell on social media, but this one is it's thicker. It's a thicker kind of silicone, and it's shaped a little bit different on the bottom. And what you would do with it, I don't know if I could get it done on the show, but like you would create the suction, and then now you're going to move it. And I need to get that a little bit. I've got some lotion stuff I could put, but you're going to move it down the tissue, and it'll actually create a lift as you're moving it and sliding it down the tissue. And I did that several times today, and I'm really interested to see the success on that, because it's just like, okay, where is the nerve entrapment? If you were to go all the way through, I was working on a hip with the Shockwave this week, and I was working on it, and I changed the tip of the Shockwave. It's really cool because the multiple tips on the Shockwave determine the depth. And so if you've got the handle, got the handle of the Shockwave like this, and it's going to send that wave into the tissue, and it could go up to like 4 inches into the tissue. It's really interesting. So the treatment area of the Shockwave now is over here. So it's this distance from the end of the tip, the end of the handle, all the way through, right? Well, they've got a little end that you can put on it, and that end kind of makes this thing kind of go down a little bit. So it's like a little addition that you can put on the end of the handle. It's a little rubber piece, and it just basically, the skin now is not touching the unit. The skin is actually touching the end of this little rubber piece. So it makes the distance shorter to the treatment zone. So if you've got it on the skin, it's not going as deep into the hip. So we're working on the hip. You can just imagine if I have the flattest part on there, then it'll go to exactly the depth. It'll go to the deepest part. But if I add this next little attachment to it, then I've made it shallower into the tissue. And then the last one, it kind of goes like that. And now it's much different, and it really makes it shallow into the tissue. So it's like when we were working on a hip, and I was really surprised that, because I was trying to have a discussion on where the genesis of the pain was. So I was using this medium one, and we were feeling some pain. And I said, okay, I'm going to take this top off, and I'm going to use the flat part of the handle, and then we're going to run the same amount of energy through the hip and see if you have a change in sensation. And there was none at all. Matter of fact, it actually decreased just a little bit. So when the sensation decreased a little bit, that was very surprising to me. I was like, wow, okay, wait a minute. Because you think you're in the depth of the hip joint, right? It's like, see if I can find a picture. Yeah, this might be as good as anything if I can get it. Man, getting these pictures is hard because it's like everybody's, if you get the picture, then you get in trouble, and show it on your deal. It's like trying to find the right hip joint in the right tissue. You get in trouble for all of them. Everybody's got to make $1. I get it. Just one of these is we'll just see. We'll use it for just a second. This is stockadobe.com. Can't use it, but it's my point is this. I'll try it real quick. My point is you can see right here that if I put that handle on the outside of the hip and I shoot it as deep as I can into the hip joint, then I'm hitting that capsule of the hip joint. But if I add the next step, the next attachment to it, then I'm not shooting it as far in. So now I'm hitting the ligaments or the muscle that's outside of the hip joint. Then if I add the very superficial tip, now I'm even getting further into it, and I may not even be to the muscle, I may be in the fascia. So there's like a level of treatment that we're going to get into that's there. And so by doing that, that was super interesting. So what I did today, as I was using the shockwave, and we were working on the areas, I was backing those distances off just a little bit, and I was putting in 400 or 500 shocks on the deepest level, and then 400 or 500 shocks on a little bit more superficial level, and then at the very end, I got the glide, and I went over the outside of the tissue all the way to the skin level. And so now we're trying to address the subluxation from the skin all the way down into the joint capsule. And I thought it was cool. I mean, it was like, we'll see what kind of results we get. We've already gotten amazing results with the shockwave all by itself. But now we're looking at it from a totally different perspective. And then the last one, this one's really cool too. But this one, you apply it, and I don't know if I'll be able to see if I can apply it on my hand. Yep. Okay. So now you create the application and you create the cupping, but this one has vibration on it. And you may be able to hear that on the radio, but now you can actually, so what I'm getting is not only am I getting cupping, but I'm also getting vibration at the same time. And there's some valuable research about vibration. I was reading it last night about the vibration on the vibe plates and what is actually happening on the vibe plates and what the nervous system is having to do with the vibration from the vibe plates and resetting the whole thing. So I just thought it's a cool addition to the practice. It's a cool addition to the practice that came about just because I'm trying to move forward. It was totally by accident, but I really do. I get it a little bit better now. I don't think you have to create that sucking mark that's left. I don't think that's necessary. We'll find out if I learn something new down the road, and I'll tell you. I'm not trying to say anything negative about it because I don't understand it. I'm just trying to say, hey, look, do the decompression, make the interstitium open up, let the fluid flow different. If you need it to be deeper, use the cup. If you don't need it to be as deep, use the tape. And so the tape, that's what the tape is doing. It's actually opening up and decompressing. And the tape is crazy good. I mean, it works amazing. But there is a difference between that couple get on in there. And I mean, you could see that. I guess you guys could see that on the, I mean, that's, when you put that cup on there, I mean, that dude is on there. I mean, that creates quite a bit of decompression. I did it on a person that had back surgery today. We did it on both sides of her spine, and I'm interested to find out because she's had a couple rough days. And I'm trying to. I can't get to the spine, right? Because it's got rods and screws in it. So I can't adjust it. I can't manipulate that. I can't adjust that spine at all. So I've lasered it. I've shock waved around it. I've done I've adjusted the spine above. I've adjusted the spine or the extremities below. I've worked all over that area. And now it's like, wow, now I can get right on top of it. I'm not going to be messing with those screws and rods, but I will be able to create some decompression on the top of that. And maybe we'll see tomorrow. I'll get a hold of her. I'll probably text her as soon as the show is over and see if we can see if we made any difference today. So yeah, Lewis, I hope everything's good. That's pretty much all I got for you tonight. I got an article, and I'll just leave it up for tomorrow that just came hot off the press. That is about vitamin D. Nope, that's not it. Let me see if I can find it before we go. I don't know what I did with it. Let me see. There it is. I got 14 seconds. Journal of the American Medical Association, April 22nd, 2025. High-dose vitamin D in clinically isolated syndrome typical of multiple sclerosis. It's not going to surprise you what you're going to hear tomorrow, but yeah, that's what we're going to start with tomorrow. I hope that was interesting. You guys have a great evening. Holler at me if I can help you, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.